isn't about doing something radical. It's actually quieter than people expect. And if we do this right, we can gain a great deal of alignment in our lives. When I'm talking about alignment, I'm talking about when your authentic truth, your actions, and your ambitions are in concert, not conflict. Hi there, it's AJ, host of Code 3 Life Reinvented. Thank you so much for being here today. It's just me. This is a solo episode, solo with AJ, I guess we can call it. Today, I'm going to do a couple of things. First of all, I really want to focus this conversation around this notion of alignment. What is it? How do we define it? And why is it hard to get to? And then I have an announcement I am so excited to make. I can't even believe I'm going to share it, quite frankly, but we're going to do it and we're going to roll with it when I get to that part of the show. So let's start at the top. What is alignment? And I am not talking about going to the chiropractor because you've got to get things in alignment with your neck and back or hips or whatever. No, we're not going to talk about that kind of alignment. If I were to ask you, are you in alignment? How would you even begin to answer that? And is it important? Well, I'm going to tell you and argue that it is really important. But before we get into its definition and why it's so hard to gain alignment, I want to address a few misconceptions. The first is alignment is not about quitting what you're doing, not necessarily. It's also not about taking this leap into the unknown with a blindfold on. It could be, but that's not necessarily what it is. It's not about blowing things up. If you've been listening to me for a while on this podcast series, it's not something I recommend, blowing things up, burning down everything you have. The whole point of this podcast is to be intentional about what we do. But I'd like to offer maybe a truer framing of what alignment is. It isn't about doing something radical. It's actually quieter than people expect. Unlike going to a chiropractor, and as you're getting in alignment, there's lots of cracking. I used to go to a chiropractor. It scared me to death, so I stopped going. But ultimately, alignment, most of the time, is about stopping one small lie at a time. Yeah, that might sound a bit aggressive, but I think it's true. And hear me out. Let's clarify alignment again by removing some things. And once we move some of this out of the way, then we can really get into diving into alignment and what it is and its definition. So to clarify about subtraction, it doesn't mean happiness all the time. If I'm in alignment, I'm just Mr. Happy. No, I mean, life has ups and downs. We have good days, we have bad days, we have things that stress us out and unexpected events that can be really upsetting. Got it. It doesn't mean there's ease or things are easy. Things might get easier, and you might actually slip into some level of a flow state, as I like to say, but it doesn't mean that's going to happen. It also doesn't mean there's a lot of necessarily certainty. There is some lack of certainty that is going to be present as you look at alignment and how we get there. And to be very clear, and maybe the most important point, alignment is not about abandoning your ambition. I want to talk about ambition and alignment here in a second. It's not. It's good to have ambition, whether that's in the career sense or raising a family sense or making your garden the most beautiful garden in the world or whatever it is, or achieving some goals. I don't think we should abandon ambition when we think about getting in alignment with ourselves. What alignment does is it doesn't remove effort. It still requires effort in what you're doing, but ultimately it removes friction or a great deal of friction within. And I think this is the key point. And it took me, quite frankly, a while to figure this out. You can be ambitious and aligned or ambitious and at war with yourself. I prefer to be ambitious and aligned, not ambitious and at war with myself. And let's keep going with this. Let's dive into the conversation from here. I'm going to talk about 3 A's. There's our authentic truth. That's the first A. The second A, of course, is alignment. I've been saying that word maybe 15 times so far in this episode. And then action. Okay. So you have your authentic truth, you have action and ambition, which can bring you to alignment. Okay. So those are my A words. We have alignment, authentic truth, action, and ambition. All right. So alignment is where internal honesty and external coherence work in sync. And when you do this, energy stops leaking, because alignment is when your ambition stops asking you to betray yourself. What does that mean? Fair enough. It's a good question. You might struggle with your ambition. Your ambition has you hard charging to the top in your field, whatever that is for you. You've got more rungs in the ladder to climb, more titles to achieve in the org chart, in the organization, more people to lead, to manage, big initiatives or products to manage. But if you are honoring your authentic truth, your ambition might be taking you away from that. So you have to start with your authentic truth. That is where we start. Who am I? We have to be radically honest for who we are. That gets you, or me, or whoever, grounded. These are my non-negotiables. This is how I want to show up. These are the values I hold dear, and I hold them so dear, I white knuckle because I hold them so tightly. They mean the world to me. So that helps you get to your authentic truth. Now we have these other A's to contend with: actions and ambitions. And if we do this right, we can gain a great deal of alignment in our lives. So if you have authentic truth that's telling you one thing, but your ambition, and it's probably some extrinsic reward system that you're playing into. It could be ego or identity driven. I need to have a certain title, or I need to work for such and such firm, or I need to live in such and such zip code. Your ambition might be taking you away from maybe where you truly, truly want to be. And I understand that dissonance, that internal dissonance. Believe me, more than you know. I really, really do. And I struggled with it mightily. And I've talked about it before, but I'm going to share with you again here. So you don't really need less ambition, but you need your ambition to be pointed in the right direction. And when it is, let me just put it another way. Alignment is when your authentic truth, actions, and ambitions are no longer in conflict. They're in concert. And I think that's the main line here. Alignment is when your authentic truth, actions, and ambitions are no longer in conflict. They're in concert. And I totally understand how, hearing that for the first time and processing it, you might ultimately be thinking, what on earth, and why would I listen to this, and what's the point, or how do I get there? I mean, I maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum and saying, wow, that landed with me. How do I put it all together? And that's totally, totally fair. And I think high achievers, super accomplished professionals, they struggle with alignment. And it's totally understandable, because achievement has been training people to prioritize outcomes over internal signals. We are rewarded for it. We are seen as great, and people reward, cheer, applaud. We get maybe financial benefits and so forth. So we are geared, and our wiring points us in a certain direction, and might cause us to ignore really important signals that are coming from inside, from our authentic truth. And speaking of truth, that external validation I was just talking about replaces the internal truth. Like, we choose to listen to these extrinsic reward systems. They make us feel good. We are seen as someone. We have an identity around it, but we're at great risk of ignoring or replacing the internal truth, not listening to that authentic truth that is so core to us that we've talked about earlier today. And that success ultimately silences questions that you need to address that are coming from within. I think it's, for high achievers, it's not so much ignoring alignment. I think for a lot of high achievers out there, they might think, well, I do recognize that I've got these other things, these signals coming from within, that the authentic truth is talking to me and I'm hearing it, but I think I'm overriding it. Like I'm not ignoring it. I just override it in pursuit of these other things and not taking the time to stop, pause, reflect, contemplate, and listen to what's coming up from within. Because we're being good achievers. We know that how the game is played. We know we have to get on the field. We know we have to do these certain things. And if we do these certain things in a certain way by a certain time, we get a reward. And everyone claps, so to speak, and we feel good. And our identity and ego is rewarded. But this is where the risk of emptiness can creep in, because not from failure, but that success that starts to feel like it doesn't fit anymore, when success stops feeling like it, right? And I think that is really critical, because when it doesn't feel like it's what you ultimately want, where you've got this dissonance and an emptiness, and you start wondering, what am I doing, and why do I keep showing up and doing a thing a certain way? But I don't have time to think about it because I've got to achieve. There's a lot riding on me and what I do in my life at this organization for my job. I got to power through. I don't have time to listen to that signal. But it's not necessarily emptiness, I think, that is the only thing that you risk occurring, right? There's a definite cost, and I know this cost extremely well. And I talked about it in an earlier episode, and I'm going to bring it up here again in a second. The costs of living out of alignment or misalignment is chronic tension, right? You're stressed out. Your cortisol might be running a bit high. There's a tension in your life as you approach every day, because your actions and ambitions are in conflict with what's really true to you. But you keep executing that same plan day after day after day. And that takes a massive toll. And you could develop things like resentment or low-grade resentment, this sense of numbness. Like, yeah, I show up, I kick butt, I get shit done, I do my deal, but I don't know. I guess I feel fine. What's that? Right? Like, you feel fine? Like, is that cool? It feels like an escapist answer, an avoidance answer. I just don't think that's super healthy. And I'll tell you why, because I literally have been through this. I joined a company and it was not a good fit for me. I knew where my values were pulling me. I knew without a doubt. And those values were taking me in this world in which I occupy now, but I was still entrenched in the world of financial services, asset and wealth management. There was a point where, it was around 2019, and I had rolled off an assignment with my friend's wealth management firm, and there was a perfect juncture, a very clean window for me to walk through, or door rather, to do what I am doing now. And I said at the top or earlier that alignment doesn't require leaps, but for me, I'm one of those people who, I guess my risk appetite is such that I'm willing to take it if I believe in it enough. But I didn't do it. I knew in my heart, I knew in my soul, my authentic truth was get into this world of helping others. My ambitions were still to make money. I think I had a hard time letting go of my identity that I had created within the world of financial services. And ultimately, what happened was really bad. And under the context of, in 2016, right, I had my first widowmaker heart attack. And I was trying to do everything I could to never let it happen again, be one and done. This particular move just was not smart from my health perspective, from my emotion perspective. I chose to stay in this world in a role that was not optimally designed for my strengths, even in financial services, even though my mind was elsewhere in doing something else, doing what I'm doing right now today, which I love doing. I think it's more fun than a barrel of monkeys. I'm having a time of my life. But at the time, I felt like I need a job. I need to show that I'm responsible and so forth. And what happened? So my actions and my ambitions went into conflict with my authentic truth. Use the metaphor, if I was a tree at this time, my roots and my trunk were firmly entrenched in this world of financial services in a nice W-2 and so forth. However, my tree branches had shifted and they were now growing in an entirely different direction than they had grown in the last 20 years of my career. And they were pulling me towards, the tree branches were pulling the top half of my tree, so to speak, just bear with me, I'm almost done with the metaphor, to the sun, and the nourishment and photosynthesis was pulling the top half of my tree in one direction, but the bottom was firmly entrenched. And you can imagine what happens to a tree when that happens. Well, it can start to break and ultimately, or crack. And that's literally what happened to me. I got to a point where getting out of bed took the equivalent of a crowbar and a hand grenade. I suffered periodic nausea, I think associated with everything psychologically that was happening. I just was like, what am I putting myself in this position? I need to be somewhere else, but I have to be here because this is what is expected of me, but I want to be over there because that's, I'm inspired and this is my mission in life, but I don't think I can do it because I have to be over here. And it caused a lot of problems internally for me. And it's so ridiculous to think about now in hindsight that, I mean, I had to work with a therapist. I had to go on anti-anxiety medications. And I'm like, why am I putting myself in a situation where I'm already a one-time heart attack survivor? I don't want another one. And I ultimately ended up having another one. So I can share with you, there is definitely a cost. I know very well. I have scars to prove it. I had scars to prove it. These were dark days for me, very dark days. And it finally came to an end. And I share that from a sense of true honesty and vulnerability. It is not meant to, I'm not here puffing up my feathers, so to speak, and strutting around. It's not something I'm proud of. I don't enjoy talking about it a whole lot, but I do in the context of maybe this can help you, what I went through. For me, my misalignment started to scream. Doesn't always show up that way, but it can be very, very draining. It can be this sense of emptiness. You've got this friction every day in your life if your actions and ambitions are not in concert with your authentic truth. They're in conflict. And that's where you have these issues. I hope this has landed with you. And I'll repeat the core point because I think it really merits going over it one more time. When I'm talking about alignment, I'm talking about when your authentic truth, your actions, and your ambitions are in concert, not conflict. Now I want to do my announcement, and thank you for listening this far into the show. Never said this publicly in this sort of space like this before, but my announcement is this. I have a book coming out soon, and I'm really excited about it. I will be sharing more about it in the coming days, either on this podcast or on social media and so forth. This book started in the summer. It started like it wrote itself, but I started writing rather in the summer of 2024. If you listen to my very first episode of Code 3, Life Reinvented, I talked about what is the true source of joy. And to me, it's when you're honoring and living your true authentic self. And you have my definition of alignment in place. The book is part memoir and part self-help, self-improvement with exercises and some other things. I don't want to give away too much right now. It was a lot of fun, very, very challenging to write, but I thoroughly enjoyed it because, quite frankly, I think it was extremely cathartic. The title of the book should come as no surprise here, maybe, if you've been following me or know me. It's called Powered by Authenticity. That's the head title. The subtitle I will share later, but it's called Powered by Authenticity because I feel like this is such a strong moment for us to understand the power of what being authentically true to ourselves is and are. This is a very, very powerful situation. And if we can dig in, understand our truth, line up our actions to the ambitions that all line up together. Another way of me saying aligned. It's like where magic, in my mind, happens. So thank you for my spot on the stage there to do my PSA announcement, my public service announcement about Powered by Authenticity. I couldn't be happier. When is it coming out, in case you're wondering? TBD, but in the April-y timeframe soon, in a few weeks for sure. So I'll close out and thank you again for being here. Where is your ambition asking you to be someone you're no longer willing to be? Where is your ambition asking you to be someone you're no longer willing to be? Have a think on that. Have a moment. Think about it. And if you made some changes, what would that feel like? If what I shared with you today resonated, I invite you to visit our website, bemorealigned.com. Shocker, aligns in our URL, bemorealigned.com. It is the home of more. And we're building a destination, a container, however you want to say it, for accomplished professionals who've been successful, but know something no longer fits. I've been talking about that here for the last however many minutes. You can always reach me at hello@bemorealigned.com. I would love to hear from you about feedback, ideas, whatever's on your mind. So I check that email address regularly, hello@bemorealigned.com. Remember, life doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Is there such a thing as the perfect moment? It waits for the moment you decide to stop settling. And when your status quo feels like a resounding status no, it's time to listen and act. I'm AJ Jones. Until next time, stay honest, stay aligned, and keep answering the call.